Hi, my name is Cheung. I manage the ReadyNAS network storage product at NETGEAR. March 31st is World Backup Day. It's no accident that data backup is raised to such worldwide prominence. All business, large and small, run on data. They rely on data to run operations, to serve customers, and to develop and market products. So I would argue that after employees, data is the most important asset that a business has. Let me read you a few statistics gathered by the Gartner Group, by the National Archives and Records Administration, and a few other organizations. One, this year, 40% of the small and medium-sized business will get hacked. Two, in 2015, the rate of ransomware infection fluctuated between 23,000 to 35,000 per month, and that number has ballooned to 56,000 in March 2017. Three, every 5 years, 20% of small and medium-sized business will suffer a major disaster. Four, 30% of the targeted attacks happen to companies that have less than 250 employees. Five, and I believe this is the most important one, 93% of companies that lost data or suffer a major data loss disaster will file for bankruptcy. And 50% of them file bankruptcy immediately. One of the most effective defenses against data loss and data breaches is by backing up your data on a regular basis. During today's live stream, I will demonstrate a few steps, easy steps that you can take to start protecting your data. Here's one example. You go to readycloud.netgear.com, log in with your unified NETGEAR credential, also known as single sign-on. From there, you log into ReadyCloud. After you're on ReadyCloud, you hit the Discover button that will discover all the ReadyNASs on your network. And then you claim them, you set them up, assign a admin username and password specific to that unit, and then you're ready to go. Today, I'm going to show three essential and easy steps to back up your data. I'm going to use a professional photographer as an example to illustrate the point. As a friend of mine once told me, a photographer has but two instruments in his trade. One is creation, two is protection. Creation, that's all the cameras, all the lights. Protection, that is his ReadyNAS. He uses the ReadyNAS to protect all the creative works that he produced. Here's a great example. The photographer goes out to a shoot. After he is done, he comes here to ReadyCloud, and then he has all the photos on his Mac. Now, before he makes the first touch, before he makes the first edit, before he creates his masterpiece, he wants to make sure that the raw material is safely protected. So very easily, he just does a drag and drop over to the ReadyNAS. Now, this is a great way to improve the productivity and quality of his work. Why? Number one, his original work is safely backed up. Number two, the speed by which he uploads that photograph is cut down by 1,000ths of the time it would take to upload it to Dropbox. Number three, a total guarantee of privacy, because this is your private cloud, this is your personal ReadyNAS sitting in your studio. Nobody can touch it, nobody can see it. Here I'm going to show you trick number two. A professional photographer often travel on location. As you traveling businessmen know, that when you travel on location, you have expenses. You think Bitcoin is money. I'm here to tell you that expense reports are where the real money is. It's true hard currency. It's pegged to the dollar. It never depreciates. For such valuable asset, what do? You back it up. You keep it safe. Here's a good example. You go to your ReadyCloud app, and then identify your ReadyNAS to where you want to back up your expense reports. And then you say, I want to back up my PC. a folder and then just go through the browser, select the folder, and then from that point on, ReadyCloud will automatically synchronize all the files in that expense reports folder to your ReadyNAS automatically. As long as you're on the network, ReadyCloud does the work. The third trick that I'd like to show you is that you can share ReadyNAS with your colleagues. You're a professional photographer. At your studio, you may have an editor, a curator, or even a production manager with whom you need to share your creative works. Now, this works with other lines of work where you have colleagues in the same environment. Now, how do you do that? You come to your Friendly ReadyCloud page. You select the ReadyNAS on which you have the data that you need to share, and then just go to that folder and click this button to add people to the list. After a few clicks, your colleagues will receive an invitation email. They will accept it, and then you'll get a notification. Now, all your colleagues have access to your creative work, and they can work on the same project. Personally, ReadyNAS is the exact product that I would use to make my job easier, to protect my creative works, and to allow me to have a greater confidence with my clients. There are many features in the ReadyNAS. I invite you to explore and to take full advantage of all those features to make your business a truly data-safe environment. Now let's talk about how to pick the right ReadyNAS model for your business. Before we do that, let's talk about the 5 causes of data loss. Number 1, physical damage to your hard drive. Number 2, medium degradation, that could be your SSD in the ReadyNAS. Number 3, virus and malware attacks. Number 4, human errors, and that happens a lot more often than you think. It's about 40% of the time when a data loss occurs, it's due to human error. And lastly is system level failures. ReadyNAS employs industry's unique 5 levels of data protection against all those causes of data loss. And all models have exactly the same level of data protection, so you don't have to make a choice. The only thing that differentiates one model to the other are the speed and the capacity. In terms of capacity, we support 12 terabyte, 16 terabyte, whatever the hard drive technology affords you. So let's take a quick look. Here, you can see that we have 2 drive bay, 4 drive bay, and 6 and 8 drive bays. And in 2 different speeds, 1 gigabit and 10 gigabit. And generally speaking, the 10 gigabit models give you about 10 times the performance. Now, for the companies that have an IT closet and you want to put your ReadyNAS in the closet on a rack, we have rack mount models as well. And generally speaking, they offer higher performance than their desktop counterparts. To sum it up, ReadyNAS offers industry's highest level of data reliability and security. It's a must-have business tool to perform data backup and protection. Now let's talk about Insight. Insight is a management platform that NETGEAR developed to manage SMB devices. Here's a good example. I'm sitting at work. Duck Work is the name that I give to the network, and it sees the ReadyNAS. It also discovers new devices that are available on the network. So for example, the 2 switches, it says unclaimed. I can claim them. I can set them up as my own. And the more interesting and important feature to me is that it can manage all the devices that are not on the current network. So for example, I have a ReadyNAS sitting in my house, and the network's name is Doug Home. So from the app, I can click it. The app makes that connection, goes to the ReadyNAS sitting in my house, and I can see the capacity that it has used, the IP address, and I can even do a firmware update if I want to. That was inside. Now let's talk about something else. Earlier, remember I told you about the 3 easy steps to back up your photos as a professional photographer. I know that you don't use iPhone to take pictures, but you might use it to take notes or take some photos of the surroundings. So one thing that I will always do as a tourist or as a traveling businessman is that I like to back up photos that I take during the day when I'm in the hotel room. And let me show you a very easy way to do it. Here's right back at you. Will, say hi. Beautiful. Now I just took a picture of Will, and it shows up here in my camera roll, and I want to back it up. All I need to do is go to Ready Cloud and then say Media Backup. And now you see that it's uploading that picture and it shows up on my ReadyNAS. Notice that I'm here at work and the machine is in my house. That was a quick example of how to do backup from your camera roll. Now let's watch a quick video on how ReadyNAS is used.
Hi, I'm Garrett Parker. I'm a freelance filmmaker, member of the Seattle-based rock and roll band Pickwick, and producer of the podcast From the Green Room. And I'm here to review the NETGEAR ReadyNAS file storage system. These are typically marketed towards small offices and really business applications, but I'm starting to see these network storage devices pop up in film studios that I work with around the city, and they really do have a lot of good applications for creative professionals. So let's take a look at what this thing is and what it can do. The ReadyNAS system is a RAID-enabled storage device that can be accessed over a local network or over the internet. If you're not familiar with RAID systems, they're basically a collection of hard drives that has the ability to recover lost information if one of the drives goes down. One of my favorite things about this system right off the bat was that it comes set up in a RAID 5 configuration and doesn't require you to have the technical knowledge to set it up. The ReadyNAS has 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, 3 USB ports, an eSATA port, and it comes with a Bluetooth adapter. You can access it over a local Wi-Fi network, but if you want to get the fastest transfer speeds, you'll want to connect your workstation with an Ethernet cable. The easiest way to access the ReadyNAS remotely is through a web browser. NETGEAR'S ReadyCloud allows you to set up a secure account that will let you log into your ReadyNAS from any computer. That means that even if you're working on a client's workstation, you can access any project files, photos, or media files that you may have left at your studio. It's not a solution for leaving entire batches of photos or video files at home, since you still have to download whatever files you want to access, but it is potentially life-saving if a file you're working on gets corrupted or deleted. For my purposes, I've mostly been using this as an archive system for all my footage and podcast episodes, but I'm starting to transition to using it as an active working drive as well. You can access your files from the desktop over a local network, which means editing programs like Premiere or Final Cut will have a file path to get to your footage. I've also been using it as a way to simplify the process of uploading a rendered video and sharing it with a client. I can share a folder on my ReadyNAS and then render videos straight into it. That way my client can start downloading it the moment it finishes rendering. Another handy feature is backing up files with a mobile app. In Pickwick, we record all of our practice demos to our phones, and with the app, I can send those recordings to the ReadyNAS from our practice space and not have to leave files sitting on my phone. There are a lot of other uses for this thing, and I'm just scratching the surface of it. You can store and stream your music, movies, and TV shows, and there's a whole community of developers who are constantly making apps for it. For my purposes though, it's mostly just been a really good way of keeping my files organized and accessible. No more hunting for what project is on what drive. I know where everything is and I can get to it from wherever I want. So I hope that's been helpful. If you're kind of on the edge of whether or not this is the right solution for you, I hope you found some good tips in here. And thanks for watching.
Sorry for that delay, having a little bit of a technical difficulty. And by the way, that was a great piece of video. It's an excellent example of how to backup data using ReadyNAS in a creative environment. Now, let's open up for questions. I welcome you to send in as many as you have. We'll be drawing two names from those who send in questions. We'll have two wonderful ReadyNAS units to give away at the end of this live event. So let's get to it. The first question came from David. So David has a lot of work has done a lot of work with Milestone platform as well as data backup. So I wasn't even going to cover that. So ReadyNAS could function as a VMS, as an NVR network video recorder as well. And the Milestone software runs on ReadyNAS. The only thing that I would like to remind you is that we have taken the Arcus version of the Milestone and run it on ReadyNAS. So if you go to ReadyNAS administration page, go to the app tab, you will find Milestone Arcus. Just install it. We offer you two licenses, two camera licenses free of charge, and then when you add more cameras, you can just purchase more licenses. Just make sure that you have ample storage capacity in your ReadyNAS because the video, the surveillance video coming from the cameras are non-stop. Of course, we support motion trigger cameras, all the standard on-vid cameras. So that's the first question about VMS, about Milestone, and the brand name is called Arcus, ARCUS. Second question, what's the difference between ReadyCloud and ReadyVault? ReadyCloud, you can think of it as a management tool over the internet, allowing you having access to your ReadyNAS by multiple people and sharing data with multiple people. ReadyNAS Vault, on the other hand, is a cloud storage that is, to me, a secondary storage to the data that I store in the ReadyNAS. So this is double data protection, right? I think you got the point about backing up data from your PC, from your camera to the ReadyNAS. That would be your first primary location of data storage. And then you would like to also have a secondary location, which would be the ReadyNAS Vault. You will find it in the backup tab under the administration page as well. Third question. I have multiple offices. Can one device work for all locations? That's where ReadyCloud comes in, okay? ReadyCloud will enable you to have access to the ReadyNAS at a remote location. So that will support your multiple offices. Next question. What NAS do you recommend for a small business with 5 employees? Now, that's a really good question. The number of employees is a great parameter when you try to decide the right ReadyNAS. The other parameter should be what kind of work you do. So for example, like my good friend Will here, if he makes a living as a professional videographer, that is, and he likes to shoot 4K. So that's a huge amount of data, right? So look at the type of work you do and decide what model you have. Now, if you have 5 employees and you are, clerical, like insurance agency, law firms, and that's mostly just data with some PDF, some graphics, some photographs of a document, then I would say a 4-bay for the office would be a very good choice, like a ReadyNAS 424 would be a very good choice. If you have, a creative environment, a videographer or photographer, then I would recommend that you may want to consider a 10 gig version, like the 500 series or 600 series, that will give you the the feeling that the NAS is almost working as fast as your internal hard drives, because those people would like to edit data, right? Edit the video, and they need to run as fast as the machine can. Next question from Red Co Operating Company. If 4 hard drives are paired, can 2 of a pair be a different size? So that's a very good question. You don't buy all the drives at the same time, right? So as technology evolves, you may find yourself having larger drives than the previous ones that you own or inserted into the NAS. So yes, we support different size of NAS operating in the same environment. However, you use the word pair, that's probably meaning rated, right? RAID. You put all 4 drives in a cluster, in a RAID group, so that you can achieve redundancy. Now, when you do that, it defaults to the lowest capacity of any one drive in the system. So, for example, if you have 2 terabyte and then 4 terabyte, the RAID configuration will default to 2 terabyte. Easy to understand, right? However, over time, you can upgrade your entire system. You put 4 terabytes in there, and then you take out the 2 terabyte and insert another 4 terabyte in. Now it continues to rebuild. Make absolutely sure you don't pull out more than 1 drive at a time, okay? You pull out 1, the system will rebuild itself. After it's complete the rebuilding, you can take out the other one. That's how you, over time, continue to increase the capacity of your system. Next question from Jerry. Can this unit be daisy chained? That's a very interesting question. Why would you like to? Why would you need daisy chain, right? First of all, we don't do that. But looking beyond your question, I believe, I'm guessing, that the real reason that you would like to do daisy chain is that you have a single pane of command, right? Just one interface, you manage multiple units, and as your needs grow, you can add more units, and still you just have one management interface. So we don't do daisy chain because using daisy chain as a hardware instrument or hardware basis for connecting multiple units together adds more risk, adds more stress to reliability. So we actually don't do that. We don't do hardware daisy chain. However, you can use ReadyCloud to just group all the ReadyNAS units together, as I show you during the presentation. I myself, I have 3 NAS, right? I own the product line. I certainly hope that I can have more than 1 unit for myself. So when I have 2 units, one putting in my home, a couple in the office, I can manage all of them, all from ReadyCloud, single pane of glass, to achieve, I believe, what you are trying to achieve using daisy chain. Next one. How does NETGEAR implementation of X-Ray compare to ZFS Ray implementation? Another really good question, and very technical too. ZFS is a kind of an enterprise level file system. We use a slightly different one called BTRFS, or commonly called ButterFS, BTRFS file system. That has a lot of the features in terms of data reliability, robustness, that is characteristics of ZFS. So we take ButterFS, and it is intrinsic, it's native to ButterFS, the Ray implementation that we take and implement X-Ray. Next question from Amy. Do you have a chart that compares your models to your competition? We usually don't do that because the competitive landscape changes constantly, and we constantly improve, evolve, add features to our product line. So we typically don't do that. Next question: how would I set up ReadyNAS as a private GIT? Is there a plug-in? So this one stumped me a little bit. I'm not sure what private GIT means. I'll go to the next question for now. TechNerd72. What file system is NAS? Oh, ButterFS. You had a great answer. Can it be used with a streaming device such as Plex? So yes, absolutely. For me personally, I actually stream it to Chromecast. I could certainly use Plex. I actually use Plex and then Chromecast it to the TV. There are several questions I think coming up about Plex. If you experience drive failure, how long does it take to recover your backup? That certainly depends on the size of your data. You know, it's a function of the size of your data. Almost exclusively, the processor, the memory in the system itself is super fast. It will rebuild and recover the data. Next question from Tim. Is it possible to increase performance of ReadyNAS by increasing factory install RAM? Okay, so that's a tricky one. In our high-end rack mount models, we support user install RAM. Okay, you can buy a DRAM strip either from us or from other vendors and put it in. For the desktop models, we actually do not encourage that because it's just a little bit too involved in terms of making it work. Next question. I have two ReadyNAS 314 with 10 terabyte drives, and they are starting to struggle with video DLNA streaming at. So for a high definition, I would certainly recommend that you keep up with the technology. Perhaps upgrade to a 400 series, and for really good high definition, maybe someday 4K streaming using Plex, for example, then even a 500 is called for. So certainly, this is a function of technology, right? As the video resolution keeps going up, your bit rate, megabits per second, no matter how developed, how new your video encoding technology gets, MPEG 2, MPEG 4, the stream bit rate will continue to increase, right? So understandably, you do have to keep up with that technology by upgrading to a later hardware model. Are ReadyNAS restricted to RAID? I would say that's a very kind of an open question. RAID, there's RAID 0. So RAID 0 means no RAID, right? So yes, ReadyNAS supports no RAID as well as RAID. So you can start from RAID 0 and then RAID 1, which is mirror, and then RAID 5, RAID 6, and sometimes even double RAID, RAID 5.0, RAID 6.0, which is unique in ReadyNAS. Our peers in the industry so far has not supported RAID 50 or RAID 60. Can you link ReadyNAS to another ReadyNAS and backup? Yes, absolutely. That's a really good question. We talk about the importance of backing up data. So many customers, especially small business owners, they would really like to have a secondary copy of the primary copy. So how to achieve that? Earlier, we talked about ReadyNAS Vault. That is a cloud-based storage, right? You can also have a second ReadyNAS to back up data from the first NAS to the second NAS. Let's take this as an example. This is a very fast model, right? I want to use that as my primary ReadyNAS. Everybody is on the system, retrieving data, even editing data live. But I would like to have a second copy of the same data somewhere else. I would put it here, right? A slightly slower model. I'm not using it live, so performance is not my number one concern. I can save a little bit money. As long as the capacity matches that of the first unit, I'm good, I'm fine. So I'll take a second unit and turn on something called ReadyDR. Ready and then capital letter D, capital letter R for disaster recovery. That is a continuous incremental backup of data from the first unit to the second unit. Okay, that is a really good feature to have for small and medium-sized business because they really value they value the data that they have. So next one. I hope I'm not skipping any. can data on ReadyNAS be encrypted? Yes, absolutely. If you care about security, if you want to perform encryption on your data, then I would also recommend that you do need to pay some attention to the performance because when you encrypt data, certainly it takes on additional bandwidth. So for a business, I would say if you want to encrypt data on a live, wire speed basis, then start with a 500 series. Okay, 400, 500, and then 600. These are performance grade difference. And then in each one of the series, you have 2 bay, 4 bay, 6 bay, and 8 bay. So look at the first number, the RN4 or RN5 or 6, as a guidance on performance. So encryption requires additional processing bandwidth. So go with a higher model ReadyNAS unit. Can I set up? Let's make sure that I don't skip any questions. I'm sorry. Reading questions here. Can you bond the NICs? This is from Brian. Can you bond the NICs on the NAS to increase throughput? Yes, you can, and that's one of the advantage of having NETGEAR business switches working with ReadyNAS because it's automated. You hook up 2 Ethernet cables and they are automatically bonded, and thereby doubling or even quadrupling your performance depending on how many Ethernet cables you're connecting. Next one. Can I set this up as a file system for my virtual machine? Yes, you can. You can definitely do that. Does NETGEAR have this is from David, does NETGEAR have a best practice guide for deploying ReadyNAS on a large scale, especially in a NETGEAR business networking environment? We do. We have a lot of KB article, knowledge-based articles that you can search, you can find, and from there you can go a little bit more detail addressing your special needs because when you say a large environment, there are many different ways to implement a large-scale storage network. But I do also want to point out. We have rack mount systems, 2U, 12 bay. There's one unit that's 4U, 60 bay. In the current industry, that's the largest size capacity storage device. I would recommend that you take a look at that. That's typically serving business up to 100, 160 people. Here is a question from Mr. The TADS, TAD45. Any new ReadyNAS coming out for home that will take advantage of the 10G SFP port on R9000? Such a great question. The honest answer is no. Long term, we'll have copper-based 10 gig coming out of the router that can connect directly to a 10 gig copper port of a ReadyNAS. We anticipate, we done some analysis, done some survey. I think over time, 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out, copper will still be the faster growing part of the 10 gig implementation as compared to SFP. This question comes from Nick. Where can I find pricing to compare models? Well, here I can point you to Amazon, CDW, and some e-com sites. Those are really good places to find prices. What models support extra cache drive? That's a great question. All our models support cache. Now the question is, can you take full advantage of the cache, right? When you insert an SSD into the chassis, you want to get more performance. So I would say, a 500 or 600 desktop unit or a 3,000 or 4,000 series in the rack mount category. Those will give you the actual performance when you insert an SSD and run them as cache. Now, also, I want to point out that cache probably here is colloquially used as a means of acceleration, improving the performance. What we actually implement here is tiering. We call it ready tier. In our performance analysis, we have determined, we have found, we have implemented. Tiering gives you more performance than caching. So that's what we have. So strictly speaking, we are developing tiering for performance acceleration, taking advantage of SSD. Let's see the next question. This is a question from Robert. Do these have the capability for using SSD? I think I just covered that. Next question from David O. I just somehow skipped it. Okay, David O. As a college student doing info security, I suppose, SEC, is there a way to set this up to back up my gaming devices, or have my gaming devices back up my gaming streams to ReadyNAS? That takes a little bit of research. Definitely not ReadyNAS backing data to a gaming device. I do not believe so, because in the gaming device you just don't have the capacity. You can certainly put a USB drive in there, but I would not recommend that. So the other direction, backing data from a gaming device to a ReadyNAS, yes, you can do that, especially if your gaming device supports the file transfer protocols that we support. Here's another question from Beaminator. Will NETGEAR integrate its router app to ReadyNAS app for convenience? The quick answer is no, because they really perform two very different functions. In a router, it's directly connected to the internet through your cable gateway or DSL modem. And typically that router will have Wi-Fi capability and multiple Ethernet ports. A NAS, the best place to put the NAS is behind the router, and the NAS has only 2 ports, right, for performance, and both ports should be connected to the LAN instead of 1 port to the WAN, 1 port to the LAN. It just confuses the user. And for a router, 1 LAN port is just not enough. So you will actually end up having to have another, either a switch or even a router to put behind the NAS. The network topology just completely confuses the user. And for long-term maintenance of your network, I would not recommend that. So last question from Ryan. Generally, I have been shopping around for a NAS that I can use for my home and work, and have had a hard time making the decision on what brand to go with. Of course, ReadyNAS, NETGEAR ReadyNAS. That is because of the reliability and security. These are the 2 fundamental technology and feature that we put into the design, okay? Even more than performance. In terms of, so I'm a product manager. From a definition standpoint, when I develop the product, what are the most important characteristics or ingredients or technology I want to put into the design? The number one and number 2 are reliability and security. Performance comes second. So if you care about the data, if you care about the reliability and security of your data, then ReadyNAS is absolutely the right choice. Okay, so those are the questions. Really, really good questions. I want to thank you very much for those questions and for joining today's live event. I hope that you have learned the importance of backing up data and a little bit about ReadyNAS. And for more information, go to netgear.com/business. And then after the live event, we'll be contacting the lucky ones who will receive 2 really good, wonderful ReadyNAS units from NETGEAR. Thank you very much once again.